Hello, my name is Tanner Hines. I'm 26 years old. I am an audio engineer and stand-up comedian based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. I was born and raised in Cincinnati. I lived here my whole life. I'm at the studio right now. Microphone. It's in Newport, Kentucky. It's right across the river from Cincinnati. My whole life, I've sort of suffered from mental illness. Uh, every sort of memory I have has been sort of wrapped around that illness. It really wasn't until I turned 17 that I first was diagnosed and started seeking treatment for my mental illness. My initial diagnosis was clinical depression, which is sort of vague. My diagnosis has since been upgraded in that time to major depressive disorder, which is better because there's more information about that diagnosis than just general um, depression or clinical depression, which is my initial diagnosis. This spring, earlier this spring, this is late summer when I'm filming this, I was asked to have an article written about me, sort of like an internal publication through UC Health or the University of Cincinnati, their medical campus and facilities, about my experience with what is called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS, which is something I talk about in greater detail in a later video, about my sort of success story with that. They're looking for sort of like patient stories, and they asked me to be part of that. And when that article came out, it was just an internal publication, but I was able to share it, and it garnered a lot of notoriety, I guess, in the weeks after I released it. A lot of people come up to me publicly or privately to commend me on my ability to speak about my struggles with mental health and mental illness. And it was sort of in that time period where this idea for like a video sort of blog or diary or whatever you want to call it came to me. So ever since then, I've sort of been wanting to do like sort of like a video diary where I talk about my story, tell my story, about how mental illness and mental health has affected me throughout my life. When you hear about people struggling with mental illness, you hear this thing called a stigma that's sort of attached to it, that causes a lot of people not to either want to talk about it or not even seek help for what they're going through. And for a long time, I didn't believe that the stigma was sort of this real thing, because I've sort of always been able to sort of talk about it to some extent, both privately and publicly. I do talk about it on stage in my acts from time to time. So my ability to sort of talk about it made me believe there wasn't sort of this stigma, but in having my story first go out there publicly and seeing people come up to me both privately and publicly and tell me how inspiring it was, and sort of tell me about their personal struggles and how they've, and seeing me has helped them to start to talk about their illness for the first time, is when I really realized, oh yeah, the stigma is something that is real and needs to be addressed. And that's sort of what this video diary is about. It's me telling my story in an honest and as real a way that I can, and how it's affected me. Also, there's been a couple of things, sort of national news, that sort of pushed me to sort of want to do something like this. First is this sort of almost everyday sort of interference by people who, in one way or another, the mental health services, mental health professionals, have either ignored or failed in some sort of way. There's the obvious one, which is the sort of major celebrity suicides that have been sort of in the news on and off the last couple of years. People like Robin Williams and Anthony Bourdain was a big one for me. I wasn't a huge fan of him personally. I never really watched his show, but a lot of people that I respect, musicians and entertainers, really liked him a lot. And to see his, he had this sort of voice and gave people this dream of traveling the world, and to have his sort of huge voice him directly to shut that voice off forever, through his own hands is really sort of eye-opening for me and the public at large. And then people, this sort of mass shooter world that we live in now. People, again, professional mental health facilities have failed in one way or another. Also, the way mental health is portrayed in the media and just the public in general. I don't think this is a American problem. This is global at this point. The way people with mental health issues are portrayed in the media or in movies or media sort of inaccurately is troublesome for someone like me who has to deal with it. Because then there's the perception that people see that, the word crazy is thrown around a lot of people with mental illness, and that's very troublesome and hurtful. I believe there's no such thing as a crazy person. There's just people who are experiencing something that is painful and they have no outlet for. So this is why they do things like this. They need help. They're not crazy. They're not insane. They're sick and they're unwell and they need help. So to sort of tell my story, I think will go a long way in helping people, even if it's just my friends and family who see this, to sort of dispel a lot of the myths and stereotypes and stigma around mental health. If people don't, I do think a lot of it's just ignorance. People don't know. They say, "Oh, this person's bipolar," and that it's not even close to what bipolar means. So it's just ignorance, and I'm not using ignorance in a bad sense. It's just people don't know, and that's why more people need to start telling their story. I know it's hard for people. I'm not saying people have to start telling their story. That's an individual decision. That's up to you. But I never thought I'd be an advocate for anything in my life. But and not that I'm famous or anything, but the nature of what I do, getting on stage, having appeared on news and have stuff come out about me, has sort of given me this platform now. And life has a way of sort of forcing you to do things that you're not ready for or you don't want to do. I think we reached sort of a critical point in society where we need to do more for people with mental health issues, and so that's sort of why I'm here, why I want to start telling my story. I've been lucky to have the platform to have the help that I have, and to now have sort of a platform, a public platform now to start talking about my issues and start addressing things. It would be a real shame if I didn't take that opportunity to do that. I've been sort of my whole life and sort of inside my head trying to worry about my own problems. I've never really taken the time to get outside of my own head and sort of look at how I can help people around me. And I do have to warn you, I don't have a professional background in terms of therapy and helping people on a professional level with mental illness. All I have is my stories, so I can't, just that sort of warning. I can't give you, advice for that. That's something I can steer you towards, people to talk to, but I can't offer you professional help that, is needed in most cases. So all I have is my story, and I hope it can inspire people. Maybe not even inspire, just give people a portrayal of what it's like to live with mental illness for what has been my whole life, and hopefully starts a bigger conversation around the issue of mental health. So I'll start telling my story. I'll break it up into probably 5 to 10 minute videos like this. I want to tell my whole story. I'll start from the beginning, earliest memories, childhood stuff, all that stuff that's happening today, and try to do it every couple weeks, and hopefully after a while my story's out there. I never really told, I don't think there's many people who know my story, at least the depth of my story. but I would do an injustice not to be honest and open about what I felt, even in times of great sadness or times where things have gotten scary for me. It's hard to be public like that, but you have to see all of it to sort of understand the depth of it, and I hope this uh, reaches people. So yeah, we're gonna start this going. I'll link a video. I'll link the article that came out about me a couple months ago in the description. You can, if you like the video, you can hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, share, all that stuff. I'll link all my social media stuff. And we'll get going here in a couple weeks. Thank you guys, and I'll see you soon.